absolute authority over their employees. And should we have that sort of thing? Should we have that sort of thing? See, what happened at the Mayfield Consumer Products Factory in Mayfield, Kentucky, there were 100 people, including 7 prisoners. Love that. Mayfield Consumer Products getting in on that great cheap labor. 7 prisoners were on the night shift, working even after tornado sirens sounded outside the facility. I want to say that again. These poor slobs were working even after tornado sirens sounded outside the facility. The workers had questioned their managers if they should leave. The managers apparently said they were warned. If they left, they were more than likely to be fired. Remember that. When a tornado did in fact hit the factory, it was so strong that there was nowhere to go. After several warnings, a tornado did hit the Mayfield Consumer Products Factory. The workers were worried. Some were asking to go home. They were told if they went home, they would be fired, more than likely be fired. According to Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, the governor said that. And when the storm passed, 8 people on the site were dead and 8 are missing and still missing. 3 hours north in Edwardsville, Illinois, a similarly powerful tornado hit an Amazon warehouse, killing 6 people. There, too, workers had been toiling in the midst of a severe storm. Who speaks for these dead people who were so terribly abused? Well, I do, apparently. Do you hear any authority figures of any kind speaking up? Do you hear any district attorneys bringing forth charges of manslaughter on the factory managers? These weren't, and I want to stop here and differentiate real quickly. These were not the owners of the factories. These were nighttime managers. And managers are, in a large organization like this, we have a lot of people, the managers are notorious suck-ups. And I'm sorry, ladies, but a lot of owners believe if you put women in charge of workers, those women will be harder on the workers than men, because there's a belief in the male management system that women tend to be more obedient to powerful males than men do. That is, anybody, male or female, who's taken a college management course knows that. Many managers think that. Now, I don't know if this case there were women managers, but I bet there were some. And they forced those people to stay there so they could look good to their boss. Oh, yeah, Mr. Big. Oh, yeah, Mr. Big. We had a bad storm, but I just told those people to keep working. Aren't you proud of me? Well, the factory's gone and several of the workers are gone. Let me remind you that had either of these groups of workers been empowered to simply say no, had they been able to put limits on work and resist unsafe working conditions, they may have been able to protect themselves, to save their own lives. Their families would still have them with them today. The workers could have had a right to leave work or miss a shift. Oh, my God, not that. Without jeopardizing their jobs, because we got to have that fear of losing your job. In this case, and let's make no bones about it, what these managers did was declare your job or your life, and several workers died because their managers were boneheads at the least and malicious at the worst. I think more malicious than stupid. They were compelled by an almost sovereign power of their respective employers to stay with terrible, terrible consequences. Don't get me wrong. I admire anybody who starts a business and puts it together. I think I've made that pretty clear over the many, many years. But I'll tell you, when there's abuse, when there's excess, and this is abuse and excess, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to speak about it because this is morally wrong in a cosmic way. The cosmos itself, and in the face of God Almighty around Christmas season, these managers forced these people to work and got them killed. You know what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing. Do you think anybody's going to advocate for these workers? Or is anybody going to speak for them when they're in their grave? Absolutely not. George Floyd, what happened to him was hideous and inhuman. I've never seen an actual murder take place on television. The country blew up. And I can't say I was 100% surprised. Who could look at that video and not be sickened? I was sick for weeks. I've only seen the George Floyd video once. And I start to finish. It's almost 9 minutes long, and I won't see it again. It's cruel. It's thoughtless. It's a murder. Were the managers who kept these people on the job cruel? You damn right they were. Did they get them killed? You damn right. The man who killed George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, a police officer, also someone who shouldn't have had authority, he's in prison for life. He belongs there. If it were up to me, he'd be looking at the chair. But I'm okay with life. It's not good for a murderous policeman to be behind bars. It really isn't. Will there be penalties for these managers? Will we send a message that you may not abuse people to death? You cannot get so involved in your own sense of power and authority and arrogance. I'm so much better than you. That's why I'm the manager here, that I'm going to force you to work until you're dead. What kind of people have we become to sit here and allow this? Mayfield's just a little town in Kentucky. It's not a major city like Minneapolis. We won't get people in the streets demanding that the managers be held accountable for killing the workers, because I think that's what they did. If you want to argue with me, my number is 955-1400. But I think you know, whether you call me or not, down in your soul and in your heart, that I'm right. These managers got some people killed, and these people didn't have to die. Our country is anti-labor. Sometimes workers are actually held in contempt by the Democratic Party. But again, the Republican Party really believes, the business class really believes, that without them kicking workers in the butt, we'd never get anything done. I have real problems with that. I have an argument for that. A society organized for capital. And what happened to our churches? Anybody go? No. I went to Bible at breakfast this morning. I feel better for it. A society organized solely for capital. A society in which most workers are denied a meaningful voice in their place of employment is a society where some workers will be exposed against their will to life-threatening conditions. It happens every day. And there's a certain remorseless attitude about it, too. Oh, geez, sorry. Again, who's going to say anything? Who's going to say anything? We'll have some other, I don't know, MSNBC will highlight COVID and Trump's role in it. And I don't know. Fox News will be talking about Jussie Smollett and who's appealing. I mean, Jussie Smollett is a narcissistic sociopath. He's a narcissistic sociopath, and he thinks he did nothing wrong because he's juicy. Dave Chappelle did something wrong. Oh my God. He ridiculed the trans community. We'll talk about that. There's a Penn State swimmer who was a young male just a few years ago, who's now beating college-age women in swimming. There was recently a contest where he beat the next, and I say he because that's what he is, but he claims to be a woman, so there you go. He beat the next woman in a contest by 30 seconds. And that woman was a top female swimmer. If you look at this person, you know he's a man. He was a swimmer as a man before he decided he was a woman. I saw a MMA match with a transgender male just beat the hell out of some girl. She was a tough girl. She was in there swinging. But this guy was obviously a broad-shouldered, long-armed man. And he just smacked her around. And, the poor woman gave up right then and there and said, hey, this isn't for me because I'm fighting men. How could we blame her? But that's what's the concern. That sort of thing is the concern. These people are dead. There are children that will grow up without mothers and fathers. And you'll never hear another damn thing about it. About them and their lives that were lost and the things that could be. That bothers me. The indifference of the ruling class. That's why I've always wanted to get rid of this self-serving two-party system. The Wagner Act. Look up the Wagner Act by Ed the Postman, good man. We used to talk about the Wagner Act and the considerable strides that labor made under Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon B. Johnson. Ed and I grew apart, and I'm sorry, he was a decent man and just one of the finest men that I ever knew, but he was too far into the Democratic Party. That was his identity, and that's who he was. And he saw me as someone who opposed the Democratic Party, even though I told him repeatedly, I'm a Democrat and you're a liberal. That's but this bothers me. Does it bother you? My number is 955-1400, 955-1400. On a local note, I don't get around to the bars much anymore. I quit drinking years ago. I still go to bars if I need to or want to, or if there's entertainment or something. We don't have that much anymore. I grew up in an era where bars in town had bands. We go around go around the area to different bars and dance halls. The Star Ballroom up in Dakota City was a favorite. The Redondo. Up by what is it? The Redondo is up by Rolfe. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and of course the Playmore here in town, which is now the Larimar Young People. When I say Playmore, you know it as Larimar, or maybe you don't know what the Larimar was at all. But those were great places. Had a lot of fun. But I used to go to the Brass Monkey fairly regularly. I went down to the Brass Rail also when that was still around, and Fort Dodge was a place where it was a town where there were a lot of bars. The culture has changed, and not that I care for the change, but that's what happened. So I don't know. I was unaware, I guess, that the Brass Monkey was having a lot of trouble there, and I read about it in the local paper today. And it seems like, as was pointed out by the new owner or manager or whatever, that most of the trouble that happened at the Brass Monkey was out in the city parking lot, Well, that's the city parking lot next to the Brass Monkey has been a place where guys and sometimes women squared off for years. You get a bunch of young people drinking, and somebody says something else. Next thing you know, they're out in the parking lot swinging. So I was a little surprised that the Brass Monkey had been the site of a shooting and some other things. But, unfortunately, shootings are more common. Bars have, and fighting doesn't seem to be as frequent as they were. But shootings still are. When I first was in the radio business, it was part of my job to gather news at Mayor's Court. I'd go to Mayor's Court every morning, and there'd be 15 to 20 people there, Monday through Friday, who had been in the bars, got in a fight, got drunk, fought with the police, something. The night before, they were still in their bar clothes. I remember some pretty girls. This is late 70s, early 80s. They had those big fur coats and high boots and all that stuff. Man, they were great. A lot of big hair and all that stuff, Farrah Fawcett Major's hair or Farrah Fawcett hair. They look great, but they obviously been drug around the parking lot a couple of times and spent the night in jail. And Kurt Wilkie was a magistrate then, Judge Kurt Wilkie. And he didn't screw around. You either paid a fine or you went to jail. End of story. Don't give me your whining. But that was the culture in our town at the time. Older Ford Dodgers know that. It's not that way now. It's just not that way now. So I was, again, when I heard about there was some sort of controversy as far as the Brass Monkey and the new owner getting a liquor license, I was surprised. I think it was something, looking back now, over the last 48 hours, it looks like something that was drummed up on Facebook and Twitter. Oh, gosh, the Brass Monkey, new owners aren't going to get a license, and this is going to be terrible, and this is so unjust and unfair. Well, apparently the council approved the license with very little discussion, unanimously. And I'd have been surprised if they did anything else. You want to get all the drunken fighting stopped in Fort Dodge, you better close the whole town down. There's always going to be drunk. Remember the Owl's Nest, young men? When I was in my 20s, I would stagger out to the Owl's Nest every now and then on Highway 20. Yowza! Now that was a party. The Owl's Nest was a party. And who could forget the Minnesota Vikings, Mick Tingelhoff, and others getting in a fight in front of the Top Hat Lounge. Top Hat Lounge, I don't think it's changed since that time. This would be 1970, 1971. Ozzie Smith, I think, was one of the running backs. The Minnesota Vikings were in town that weekend to give some sort of talk. The Vikings did things. I mean, major NFL teams did that. They sent their players in the offseason out into little towns, into schools, and they'd give a little talk on what life was really like in the NFL. They didn't talk about the womanizing and cocaine, of course, but they talked to young people. I remember taking my son. I went years ago when Earl Batty and Sandy Alomar played for the Twins. Let's go back a few years there. But as I recall, the Vikings, and Tinkelhoff was 6'10", the Vikings had hooked up with a local guy and went to the Top Hat. Well, this local guy was pretty sure that he could get away with anything as long as the Vikings were standing there. Well, for some reason, and there was, Fort Dodge had a lot of tough guys, a lot of brawlers in those days. Worked at the packing plant, drank beer, and kicked each other's butts. One of the really tough guys who had just separated from his wife was in the Top Hat commiserating with friends. And this local guy with the Vikings decided to make fun of him and his divorce, impending divorce. Well, the local tough guy, being a Dodger all the way, got up off his stool and started overhauling this creep. And the Vikings got involved, and away we went. 3 o'clock.
From tuning an engine to replacing a fuse, you can learn it all under the hood. Heard every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
The search isn't over.
and flu. So make sure you use an accurate thermometer. Only the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer. With more than 100 clinical studies, non-contact thermometers have no clinical evidence behind them, and you cannot rely on them. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. It's 3:53 Tuesday. The guests I usually have on Tuesday, none of them could show up. City Manager David Furyk will not be here in the next half hour, unfortunately. It's always a great pleasure to have David here. And, of course, Jim Kirsten usually checks in about this time, but he's sick, apparently, I'm sorry to say, or he can't be here one way or the other. I don't know. But also, Dr. Terry Menke will not be with us tomorrow and probably won't return until February sometime, I'm told. And Menke's another guest I depend on. I think we all depend on Menke to kind of tell us what's happening behind the scenes, so to speak. Menke is nothing if not thorough. He's probably the best researcher of all the guests I've ever had, maybe the best researcher in our town. I don't know. But sorry to say, he will not be here tomorrow and for the next several weeks at least. Halter dude, Jeff Halter, longtime city councilman, who will be leaving his post in January, should be with us later in the week, kind of a goodbye to the Swami type meeting, which I look forward to. Jeff was mad at me for some reason. He did tell me, and it was something I didn't know I did. So I apologize sincerely, and we got over it, and Jeff will be here on Thursday because I don't mind insulting some people. They can go away and stay ticked all they want to, but Jeff, I didn't like that because Jeff's a good guy, and he's a fellow wrestling fan and all of those things. And he didn't always, I was about to say he didn't do as I thought he should all the time on the city council, but there's not a council person or mayor or supervisor we've had in the over 40 years that I've lived here who's voted exactly as I thought he or she should in all these years. So that's, people, there's something I've come around to more and more, and I forgot this for a long time, is that good people, good-hearted people, people with good souls can disagree, and they can disagree vigorously, but they don't have to hate each other. There has been a climate of hate in our country for too long. I'm reminded of some of the more intemperate remarks that Senator Cory Booker had made about getting up in the faces of Trump supporters. So people with MAGA hats were attacked. Disgracefully, some Trump-era officials, such as Mike Huckabee's daughter, who was his press secretary for a while, were roundly harassed and screamed at in restaurants. It's not the way we do things in the United States of America, that kind of ugliness. And of course, Trump himself helped nothing. His behavior was radically different from any we'd seen before, if I can put that as diplomatically as I can. Some of his policies I enjoyed. Some of his attitude as far as helping working people, I enjoyed. Somebody's got to do it. I told the story a little earlier today on the workers who were forced to stay at their posts in Mayfield, Kentucky. 8 of them are dead, and 8 of them are still missing. Now, that was after tornado sirens went off. The managers told them that if they left the building and sought shelter, they may well be fired. Those managers should be arrested. They won't be. This was not on video as the George Floyd murder video was. But it illustrates once again how powerless workers are. They have no allies. None, zippo, nada. Many Democrats, like myself, are furious with the Democratic Party. And as Bill Maher said, he's often questioned by fellow Democrats and liberals. Why don't working people like us? Why do they vote for someone other than us? And Bill Maher said, it's because they hate you. They despise you for taking the party that they depended on for 3 generations and turning it into something self-serving. Come on. Joe Biden's doing a lot for black people, not because he really feels for African Americans in their struggle, because they got him elected. Biden always was a hack politician, friendly, garrulous, all those things, outgoing, but just a hack politician. And again, he has no base. He has no base, fervent base that's in this for Biden, like Reagan had, like Clinton had, like Obama, even to some extent, the Bushes. The Bushes. I don't like to talk about these things around Christmas time, but I guess I'm forced. We don't even pay much attention to Christmas anymore. Let's go to the phones. This is AM 1400.
This is Web Listing Pros calling about your Google My Business listing. Our records show that your listing is either not verified or missing important information.
Is that right? Shut up, will you? Oh, God. I have no idea who these people are who call on a talk radio request line with an automated message. I don't know. Maybe somebody giving that message out there or that number out there somewhere. I don't know. That was pretty silly. Billie Eilish is a singer who I don't know a thing about, but apparently she's a popular singer. And she said she started watching violent porn at the age of 11. Where were her parents, for God's sake? Where were her guardians? No wonder our society is so twisted if we have 11-year-old girls watching violent porn regularly. It's 4 o'clock. This is KVFD in Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
This is a Fox News alert. Avoiding default. I'm Lisa Brady. The U.S. Senate just voting to raise the nation's debt limit from $28.9 trillion to $31.4 million. This happening on a simple majority vote being allowed by Republicans who didn't want to approve it.
There's plenty of time for conversations about what it should look like moving forward, but there's no question it's a good sign that we are not going to be on the brink of defaulting our U.S. economy or sending the U.S. economy into a recession.
White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki says it's been done many times with bipartisan votes. The Senate minority leader argued, though, Democrats should do it alone, the way they were attempting to pass the president's sweeping social spending plan. The final vote to raise the debt limit just moments ago, 50 to 49. President Biden says he's encouraged by new data on Pfizer's new pill to treat COVID, and he's ordered enough for 10 million Americans, even though it is still under FDA review. This after the drug maker said its COVID pill will protect against severe disease and the Omicron variant.
A study looked at 2,246 unvaccinated volunteers, and the results largely matched those of a smaller analysis Pfizer released last month. Pfizer says if the drug is given within 3 days of the onset of COVID symptoms, it reduced the risk of hospitalization and death by 89%. The announcement comes as COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are on the rise again in the U.S.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Meantime, the World Health Organization warning today Omicron is spreading more quickly than other variants, now in 77 countries. Today, the D.C. Attorney General announcing a civil lawsuit against the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, accusing those groups of physical and financial harm to the nation's capital and its residents. And he called the Capitol riot a planned act of terrorism. America is listening to Fox News.
What can give you a competitive edge?